Judging by the fact that there is a wall of text in the news of the week board, this means we have a ton of news to discuss that has happened in these last couple of days around the MLS news cycle. And let's just not waste any time and just jump straight into the first news that we're going to be talking about, which is FC Dallas has officially terminated goalkeeper Jesse Gonzalez contract. Now, if you wonder why exactly they decided to do that, well, if you guys remember a couple of months ago, Jesse Gonzalez unfortunately allegedly had a domestic assault case that was on him, and there's been an ongoing investigation of whether or not if he actually committed a domestic assault. And while we don't exactly know the answer to it, it seemed like FC Dallas is done with this whole investigation, and that they fear that this might tarnish their image a little bit. So they decided to terminate his contract, which is such a shame to Jesse Gonzalez that his contract is over, because this is one of the most promising young American goalkeeper and one of the most promising goalkeeper in the MLS. But now the fact that he has this domestic assault cases, which anytime when you commit a domestic assault or an alleged case like that, that will really tarnish not only your playing career with your club, but your playing career as a whole. So yeah, it's very, very much a shame to see that of course is what it gets to, but I feel like FC Dallas was forced to potentially do that just so that they don't want their image to tarnish anymore. Now, talk about transfer news. During these last couple of days, we had a bunch of transfer news to talk about. So let us actually begin talking the transfer news by going to the club that has kind of been in the transfer news pretty much almost every single week, and that of course is Inter Miami. Now, Inter Miami last week of course was targeting on Luis Suarez, and unsurprisingly for the last couple of days I haven't heard any source about Luis Suarez potentially going to Inter Miami, and thus this makes me feel like this is just going to be one of those news that's come out of last week that is basically them just kind of get their fans hope that they potentially is going to sign that European superstar player, and then they let them down by just realizing it is a rumor. Now, they also originally was targeting Willian, but it seemed like that is going to be gone up in smoke in terms of them potentially getting him, because there's now a lot of report that he is actually heading to Arsenal. Chelsea, of course, did try to offer Willian a new contract, but Willian says that he want a 3-year contract, which Chelsea basically say no, because they have a policy where they're not going to sign anybody over the age of 30 with more than a 3-year contract. So it seemed like he potentially could be heading to another London club, that is Arsenal. And if that does happen, yeah, it feels like Arsenal probably did not learn anything from some of the previous Chelsea players that they of course got. But for Inter Miami, this is again another missed opportunity that they had. Although I will say that Willian, he is 35 years old and is going to be 36 coming soon, and that if he does come to MLS, I think he will make a big impact to this team, but probably he'll make a big impact to this Inter Miami team at the very best for 2 years, because I feel like his legs is going to eventually runs out, and that I feel like there's a better player and a better European superstar player that Inter Miami could definitely attract them. And then if they eventually did get Willian, I don't think the fans are going to be super excited about this move, and that it's definitely not a move that you're going to get butts in the seat if Inter Miami is going to promise their fans that they're going to eventually spend that third DP on that European superstar player that they've been promising to their fans for a very long time now. Now, LAFC Vice President of Sports Operation John Thornton says that he have received transfer offer of multiple LAFC players, and I have a feeling one of those players has got to be Diego Rossi, because I know there's been a lot of talks of what exactly is going to happen with Diego Rossi, and that it seemed like his time with LAFC is kind of about to come to a close, because he's been here for now 3 seasons, and that after his performance in the MLS's back tournament, not only his stock price and his transfer fee has completely skyrocketed, but it's getting to a time where I feel like LAFC is going to go through that stage where once they develop these young South American players, they eventually are going to sell them off. And it's definitely not going to be easy for LAFC to eventually lose Diego Rossi, because besides Vela, I feel like Rossi is probably one of the most important player on this team, and it showed in this tournament how much of a big impact that he has throughout this tournament. But still, this is kind of the MLS way, where when you develop a young South American talent, you eventually are going to sell them off of a profit. And if there is going to be a European team that's going to give LAFC upwards like 15 or 20 million or even $30 million for Diego Rossi, it's going to be very hard for LAFC to turn down that offer. And hence, I feel like I wouldn't say during this summer transfer window, I think Diego Rossi is still going to be with LAFC for the end of the season, but heading into next off season, or maybe even the next transfer window, that could be a time where I feel like we're going to see a lot of offer that LAFC is going to receive for Diego Rossi, and it's going to be interesting to see which offer they feel like it's going to be comfortable that they can eventually move on from Diego Rossi and use that money to potentially find players to, of course, potentially will replace Diego Rossi in that spot. But as I said, Diego Rossi is not the only guy that is linked with. There's definitely a lot of other players. I know Atuesta and Latif Blessing are another couple of young players on that LAFC team that has been rumored to potentially make the jump to Europe. So yeah, LAFC, we talked about how they have all the riches that they have. Well, if they of course are going to sell those players, yeah, the rich just gets richer for them. I mean, can you imagine it once they sell their best player and get a big profit out of that to once again build another strong team? This team can really be a dangerous team heading into the next couple of seasons in MLS. Now, Austin FC, who of course is coming into the league next season, looks like they are going to look to sign their next player, and this next player that they are looking to sign is a Paraguayan international by the name of Cecilio Dominguez, who is currently playing with Independiente in Argentina. Now, this guy, before he went to Independiente, I remember he played with Club America, and he did look very well when he was there. So if Austin FC is able to get a guy that they think this is going to be the guy that is kind of like the young South American player that they envision are going to develop and sell them, even though technically he's not really that young. He's now 25 years old right now. But if they can, of course, get him, this could be a huge step in terms of building their squad. And that, for Austin FC, we are getting to that point where it is now a couple of, well, we're actually about maybe 9 months or maybe 10 months away from the next season starts, depending on if next season is going to be delayed because of what's going on with this season and how maybe it's going to end late. But this is going to be the time of the period where we're going to definitely hear a lot of reports and a lot of players that's going to be linked with Austin FC as they are going to be coming into the league heading into next season. Now, there was a couple of Honduran players that has been linked to come to MLS this week also. One of them is Olympia forward Junior Larissa, who is rumored to go on loan in MLS. Well, the Dynamo also have been linked to sign Honduran striker Dexton Valeto, and I won't be surprised if both Honduran players going to go with the Dynamo, because that's what the Dynamo does. Like, they are a team that has tons of Honduran player, and that they just seems to love to sign Honduran player for the past couple of years. And I have a feeling with them linking with Darson Valeto, that might has a lot to do with the fact that Albert Veliz might be on his way out, and that this is going to be the guy that potentially is going to replace him. Or maybe if Mauro Manotas might be a guy that could be on his way out, and that this will be kind of a like replacement with the way that he of course play in that same spot that Mauro Manotas is on. But we shall see whether or not if they of course eventually sign him, and whether or not if Junior Loreto is going to go with the Dynamo, because it says here in the news he is rumored with an unknown MLS team. So we shall see whether or not if that unknown team is actually the Houston Dynamo or is it another team that is looking to try to get him on loan. Now this is a news that I kind of talked about before, but I'll just bring it up in the news of the week just because it is there. Minnesota, of course, are set to sign Emmanuel Reynoso in the upcoming days. I mentioned this a couple of days ago, where I feel like it's going to be either on Monday or Tuesday that they are going to announce the signing, and this has been long overdue in terms of the fact that we've been linking with this guy ever since I think last season, and it seemed like after all the negotiation we have done for the past couple of months, it looks like it has finally about to come to an end, and that eventually the Loons is going to get the guy that I feel like is the missing piece for this team. Like, I feel like when you look at how this tournament is, I just feel if we actually have a number 10, if we have a creative player on our team, this team could have been a dangerous team going forward on the attack, and maybe you could argue that they could have actually beat Orlando City if they had Emmanuel Reynoso in the tournament. Now, actually, that being said, even if we got him before the tournament, he wouldn't be available for the tournament itself, because, you know, if we would have got him either on a DP contract, which is most likely that's going to be the case, then yeah, he's not eligible of playing in the tournament. But if we do get him once the season does resume in late August, this will be a game changer for this Loons team that is looking to try to make a deep run heading into the playoffs. Like, right now, when you look at where the Loons are in the standings, they're second in the Western Conference, just 1 point behind SKC. This is a team that are really looking to trying to challenge and trying to one-up what they did last season by making the playoffs and finishing fourth in the Western Conference. The Red Bulls are also close to signing Ghanaian forward Samuel TF, I think that's how you pronounce, from RB Salzburg. So this is kind of one of the rare kind of benefit the fact that the Red Bulls gets, with the fact that, you know, they, of course, if they want to get some players, they can always call on some of their affiliate teams. And I know RB Salzburg technically is not an affiliate team for the Red Bulls, but it's basically on the same brand, and I'm assuming, I mean the reason why they are looking to try to get him, and eventually maybe Salzburg is going to accept this deal, is because they're going to basically sell him to the same brand and the same owner of the team that is based in. So yeah, we shall see whether or not if this is going to do, or whether or not if this deal is going to get done. And if it does get done, you know, I haven't heard a lot about this guy other than the fact that he hasn't really been playing with Salzburg a lot and he's been on loan for a bit. But the Red Bulls are really hoping that this is a guy that is going to be the answer in terms of them replacing Bradley Wright Phillips. I mean, right now you saw through this tournament how they clearly do not have a number 9 in their spot, and that they're really looking deep in terms of trying to find that number 9 that is going to be the player that will score the goals for this team. Now, we also had a player that is going to be leaving MLS and heading to somewhere else, and that, of course, is Whitecaps midfielder Bonkwan is setting to move to Russia, and he is setting to move to Rubin Kazan, although there is conflict reports saying that he's actually not going to be going to Russia, but instead of going to Croatia and join Dinamo Zagreb. But whether or not if he's going to Russia or going to Croatia, you know, it's kind of sad the fact that it did not work out for him when he was with the Whitecaps. Like, when he first signed with the Whitecaps, I thought he was going to be one of the keystone pieces in terms of the rebuild that this Whitecaps team is involved, but it doesn't seem like that is kind of the case, and it just didn't feel like he felt comfortable in the system that the Whitecaps are running. So eventually they're going to have to, of course, let him go, and in some ways he, of course, is going to be eventually going to Europe, which is kind of something that a lot of players are looking to try to do when they come to MLS, where this is a platform for them to potentially going to Europe and show off some of the talent that they have while they're developing in this league. Now, we did also have a confirmed signing from this week, and that, of course, is the Red Bulls have acquired English midfielder, and I believe it's Drew Yearwood, if that's how you pronounce his first name, from Brentford. Now, from what I heard, he hasn't really been playing for Brentford, and that he's kind of also been on loan for a bit, and that this is probably kind of a Phil Simms kind of replacement that the Red Bulls are trying to do. But we shall see whether or not if this is going to work out or not, because I also have heard mixed reaction in terms of this player. Some people said that he is a very promising player, that he used to be on the England U17 and U19 teams and did well with them, but he never really got a chance to potentially show his potential. So if he does come to the Red Bulls, and again, MLS is a platform for a lot of these young players to show their potential, so that they can of course go back to Europe and show that potential. That might be the case, but some people also said that he's not really that good anymore, and this is just kind of a wasteful signing that the Red Bulls are trying to do. So we shall see what is going to be the verdict once he start playing with this team when the season, of course, restart. Now talk about some injury news. Carlos Hill is going to be set to miss 3 to 5 months after an Achilles surgery, and I think I forgot to mention that Carlos Hill actually left the bubble, I think during the group stage for New England, because it seemed like he was suffering a bit of an injury, and it seemed like that injury was a foot injury. Well, now we know that it was an Achilles injury, and that he unfortunately going to be missed 3 to 5 months, which means that he probably could be on the verge of being out for the season. I mean, unless if New England is going to make a deep run heading into the playoffs, I don't see how Carlos Hill probably might be coming back to this team. And as much as this is a huge blow to the Revs, because Carlos Hill has been one of the keystone attacker and one of the better creative player in this league, and a big impact player for this Revs team going forward on the attack. I feel like they if they do make a deep playoff run, or if they do make it to the playoffs heading into the shortened season, I really hope they don't just rush him and decided that this of course will work out, because Achilles injuries is definitely something that is probably one of the toughest to come back if you're a soccer player, and that we've seen before when players that suffer an Achilles injury or torn an ACL, when they come back, most of the time that they're not the same player as they were before they went down with an injury, and it's going to take time to recover from that injury, rather than just rushing that player and hope that things will work out. Now, speaking of Achilles injury, unfortunately, Fire goalkeeper Tinnerholm, or not Tinnerholm, actually, it's actually Chromholm. I don't know why I wrote Tinnerholm there. I got mistaken by the NYCFC fullback, but Chromholm, that is out for the season after suffer a torn ACL, and yeah, it's a shame the fact that we see another player, of course, went down because of a torn ACL, and I'm hoping Cornholm, that is going to recover from this injury, and wish him a speedy recovery. But now the Fire will need to look for a new number one goalkeeper, and I thought Chromholm throughout this tournament, he hasn't been that bad, but at the same time, I definitely didn't think that he was super amazing, and a goalkeeper that you can really trust on to make some key save throughout this game. But still, seeing a player go down with a torn ACL, you really hate to see it, especially if it's a season-ending injury. Speaking of NYCFC, them and Toronto have announced that they will be playing at Red Bull Arena for their home regular season game. So something tells me Red Bull Arena is going to be used a lot during when the season resumes, with the way that now they have two more teams that's going to be playing in that same ground in addition to the team that actually played at that stadium, that is the Red Bulls. NYCFC, well, it's not a big surprise they're playing at Red Bull Arena again, because they play at that stadium during the CONCACAF Champions League, and I know there were a lot of supporter groups from the NYCFC side, most notably the Third Rail, was super against this move, with the way that it makes no sense whatsoever to play at a stadium that is basically your rival. But the good news for NYCFC this time is that at least they don't have to worry about their supporters potentially will have to once again endure the pain and suffering of playing in their rival stadium when the season resumes, because I'm assuming most likely there's not going to be fans attending these games, especially in the New York area. Now, Toronto, their case is kind of interesting because Toronto is a team that, as I said before, they're one of those free Canadian team that unfortunately is having trouble in terms of playing game in their home market, and it's getting to a point where it looked like they are just going to have to play in the United States, and that is going to be the case. And I wonder other Canadian team like the Vancouver Whitecaps and the Montreal Impact might follow suit, and that I won't be surprised if Montreal will join Toronto playing at Red Bull Arena or playing at another stadium that is in the U.S. and in the Northeast region. And for the Whitecaps, I think they might be thinking about also playing in the U.S. and that maybe they'll be playing in Seattle or Portland for some of their home games, mainly because they can't play their home games right now at BC Place. So it'll be interesting to see how these Canadian teams will actually play some of their home games, because as I said yesterday, a lot of these Canadian teams, there is still a lot of uncertain of what exactly they are going to do when the season resumes, because they cannot play any home games right now in their home market. Plus, when they do have to play road games where they have to cross the border to the U.S., once they cross the border back to Canada, they have to go through that mandatory 14-day period, and that's not going to work when you have a season that is going on right now. So we shall see how that's going to work out. But finally, or actually not finally, we still have two more news to talk about. FC Dallas and RSL have already announced plan to have limited capacity once the season resumes, and I believe Dallas have said that they are going to have roughly about 5,000 to about 7,500 fans of attending their games, which I know there's a lot of people that's going to be angry about that, and that there's a lot of criticism also received from that, because Texas is one of the states that is kind of a hotspot in terms of the whole COVID-19 cases. But even if they do decide to make it bid around 5,000 to 7,500 capacity in these games, at least you could say that that's kind of a normal Dallas game. Okay, I know I should stop making that joke about Dallas having trouble in terms of filling fans in their stadium, but it's kind of the truth with the way that most of the time that stadium is relatively empty, and it feels like if they're going to have 5,000 to 7,500 fans in the stadium, that seems like a pretty normal FC Dallas game with how much empty seat is around. Now, for RSL, they also have announced that they are looking to have up to 5,000 fans to play at Rio Tinto Stadium, or 5,000 fans to show up at Rio Tinto Stadium to watch their team play home games. Now, Utah is a state that is not really a state that has a lot of COVID-19 cases, and you could maybe argue they're a state that have some of the fewest COVID-19 cases that is going on. And I know their affiliate team, Rio Monarchs, have a couple of games where they did have fans that was attending games. So it seemed like they are also going to be a team that is going to be like their affiliates and have fans in stands doing the home games. By the way, I know there's been ongoing criticism in terms of the fact that fans clearly should not be allowed when this restart is going to be back, because it's clearly unsafe. But again, as I said yesterday when I talked about my devil's advocate in terms of the league doing the USL style of way to restart the season, if you give fans back into the stands, and that if it is safe enough to do so, then why not? See how, of course, it goes. And, I'm not sure if this is entirely true, but right now from what I've seen in some of these USL games when they do allow fans in the stands, most of the fans have been wearing masks I've seen, and that I haven't heard any situation where teams basically have to say that we can't allow fans anymore, because there seems to be an outbreak that is going on in the stadium during that specific game when we had fans in the stands. As long as if it's safe, I feel like that shouldn't be any problem in terms of them potentially having fans in the stands. But again, from what I just said, I heard rumors that of course is the truth. It's not a confirmed source, and if I am wrong with that rumor, don't blame me in terms of the fact that I basically said that, and that those are just kind of the rumors that is said. So we shall see whether or not if that is going to be the case. And then finally, in terms of the last news of this episode, I know this has been a long episode because of how many news that we have to talk about, but this is going to be a relatively quick one that I'm going to round it up this episode, and that is talk about how the CONCACAF Champions League could continue in one hub city and in a competition that I thought it was pretty much dead this season, and I thought they weren't going to continue after what's going on with this pandemic. It seemed like they're looking to trying to resume, and they're going to try to resume in one specific hub city, which pretty much is them following the same route that the UEFA Champions League is doing, where, you know, in the Champions League they chose Lisbon as the area where they're going to have quarterfinal, semifinal, and the Champions League final game that is going to be taking place, and the CONCACAF Champions League is basically following that same format. Now, that being said, I'm not quite sure when exactly this is going to happen, and that they still haven't chose that hub cities of when exactly that is going to be, where exactly this hub city is going to take place. And I have a feeling at the earliest, if they do decide to return, I feel like it's going to be December at the earliest that the CONCACAF Champions League is going to resume, because I just don't see them having the CONCACAF Champions League during when the Liga MX and the MLS season is just trying their best to cram in as many games as possible to finish their season, and that I feel like the CCL is going to, again, do the same thing as the Champions League that UEFA is doing, where they're just going to have those games once the season, of course, resume. And if that is the case, that hub city, I feel like it's going to have to be a warm weather cities, which maybe that means that hub city might be Mexico, or I feel like maybe it's going to be the US, because, you know, the CONCACAF Champions League, you know, if they, by then there's going to be fans that is allowed to go back into the stands, they of course want to choose a US city so that they can of course earn the most money out of that. So we shall see whether or not if CCL is going to finally announce their plan of returning, but right now they're just basically saying that there is definitely high speculation that this competition could resume, and it's going to be happening in that specific hub city. But that being said, let me know in the comments below about all these news that I've talked about. I know that I probably have missed some news that has happened in these last couple of days, because there was a lot of news that I could have easily included onto the board, but fortunately they didn't kind of make the cut. But if those are kind of the news that you want me to talk about, let me know in the comments below. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I of course will see you guys next time.